This is the AM News. Details now. The Ghana Armed Forces has issued a strong warning against attacking uniformed military personnel following a viral video where parliamentary candidates for Amenfi East constituency in the Western region, Ernest Frimpong, encourages miners to retaliate against security forces at mining sites. In a statement, the Ghana Armed Forces underscores that such actions are not only unlawful, but also jeopardize national security and stability. This, the details of the statement as read to you. Now, according to the statement, the Ghana Armed Forces has taken note of viral videos on social media calling for attacks on soldiers and other security personnel. We strongly wish to caution the public against such utterances. It's instructive to note that such calls are not only unlawful, but also pose a significant threat to the security and stability of our nation. We therefore condemn any form of incitement or encouragement of violence against our soldiers. It goes on to say they wish to assure all and sundry Ghana Armed Forces will continue to perform its duties of safeguarding the security of the state and protection of civilians. It is also crucial to understand that personnel of Ghana Armed Forces and sister security agencies are committed to upholding the highest standards of professionalism, discipline, and respect for human rights in the execution of their duties. In a situation where a soldier misconducts him or himself, the soldier should be reported to the nearest police station or military barracks for the appropriate disciplinary action to be taken. Now, it is important to note soldiers, like any individuals, have the right to self-defense when faced with imminent threats or attacks that pose a danger to their lives or the lives of others. In situations where soldiers are confronted with immediate threats or acts of violence, they are allowed to use necessary and appropriate or proportionate force to protect themselves and others. It must be noted that the outcome of such avoidable confrontations may be unpleasant and dire. Now, it is against the premise that Ghana Armed Forces wishes to remind and caution the public that assaulting or attacking soldiers is a grave offense punishable by law. It implores all citizens to respect, cooperate, and support our soldiers, and to refrain from engaging in acts of violence or incitement against them. Finally, once again, Ghana Armed Forces wishes to reiterate its commitment to upholding the values of professionalism, integrity, and service to the nation. They will continue to cooperate with sister security agencies to protect, defend Ghana's interests while respecting the rights and dignity of all citizens. Ghana Armed Forces operates an open door policy and therefore wishes to encourage the public to channel their concerns or grievances through the Department of Public Relations of the Ghana Armed Forces. And it's signed by E. Agri Kwashi, who is the Brigadier General and Director General of Public Relations. In other stories, former Ghana Football Association President Kwesi Nyantakyi would have to wait a little longer to know the outcome of an appeal by state prosecutors challenging a High Court decision for investigative journalist Anas Aremeyau Anas to unmask in chambers before giving testimony in open court in the ongoing corruption trial. The former FA boss is standing trial for fraud, corruption, and conspiracy to defraud over his involvement in the number 12 expose by the investigative journalist. An Accra High Court in May 2023 ruled in favor of Mr. Nyantakyi for Anas Aremeyau Anas to unmask and be identified in chambers by the former GFA boss. Lateef Idrisu was in court and has the rest of the story.
Former Ghana Football Association boss Kwesi Nyantakyi would have to wait a little longer for two scenarios to play out. One, whether or not he gets to see the face of his investigative journalist Anas Aremeyau Anas, a ruling that has gone in his favor here at the High Court, which is currently being challenged at the Appeals Court, or whether he gets his case to be dismissed here at the court and him discharged. Now, here today in court, lawyer for Kwesi Nyantakyi repeated his earlier appeal or plea to the court for the court to discharge his client because of the quote and unquote delay tactics being employed by state prosecutors who I must say were not in court today for the trial. But the sitting judge, Justice Mary Louise Simmons, after listening to the plea by the counsel for Mr. Nyantechi, argued that there is a case sitting at the appeals court, and so she cannot discharge Mr. Kwesi Nyantechi. She would have to wait for the appeals court decision before she makes any further moves on the case that is currently sitting in her court. The case has been adjourned to July 10 at 9 a.m. when it's recalled here at the High Court, by which time the expectation of the court is that the appeals court would have come through with a determination on whether or not Anas Arimiao Anas should unmask or otherwise. From the court complex, Latif Idris reporting for Joy News.
Away from that, at a book launch in Accra, Dr. Eche Sikanku, a political science lecturer at the University of Media, Arts and Communication, at his book launch here in Accra, highlighted the significant contributions Dr. Bawumia has made to political discourse, policy and programs since becoming vice president. According to him, Dr. Bawumia's activism, energy and dynamism in his role deserves to be documented. There's more in this report.
The book, which uses Dr. Bawumia as a case study, highlights his role as vice president and details how he has leveraged the vice presidency to significantly contribute to political discourse, influence policy decisions, and implement impactful programs.
So the purpose of this book was to throw more light on the institution of the vice presidency and how it has evolved over time. We also used Dr. Bawumia as a primer or as a case study to show how he had used that institution as an instrument to bring about things or to advocate for things that he was passionate about, but also to look at how his activeness, his dutifulness, his commitment had transformed the institution of the vice presidency.
Dr. Sikanku explained that the motive behind the book was to shed light on a time in Ghana's democratic history when the vice presidency became visible and influential. He also hopes the book will contribute to academic research in political science, leadership, and communication.
So it is just to recognize a particular time within our democratic history where we have seen a more prominent, a more visible vice presidency, which is very different from what we've had in the past, right? So this is really the purpose of it, to document such an evolution of the vice presidency and to tease up the values that are embedded in the personality who has been at the center of such an evolutionary transformation. The purpose of this is to really contribute to the democratic space in Ghana, to contribute to academic studies, to contribute to studies in political science, leadership, communication, African affairs, international studies. The purpose of that is to just throw light, to be reflective of a particular personality in our politics.
Dr. Sikanku noted that in many democracies, the role of the vice presidency has traditionally been limited to symbolic duties and adherence to long-standing tradition. Therefore, Dr. Bawumia's unique contributions and proactive efforts warrant thorough documentation and recognition.
Vice President Bawumia has done for this nation what Walter Mondale did for the United States in terms of the institutional transformation of the vice presidency. Making it a more prominent role, a more active role, and a more useful, it's a more useful and meaningful role beyond the traditional things that we're expecting to do. Because if you look at the constitutional provisions, it is just really very limited.
Sarah Mentor's report read to you.
Now, Bono East Regional Manager of the Forestry Commission, Dixon Ejesechi, has charged residents of the area to own the tree planting initiative as part of government's drive aimed at restoring the country's depleted forest cover. He made this call during a tree planting exercise at the Kintampo Waterfalls as part of the regional launch of Green Ghana Day. Anas Sabit has more.
The Green Ghana project, launched in the year 2021 by the President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, is aimed at restoring Ghana's depleted forest cover and contributing to the global fight against climate change. The latest drive of the initiative, held under the theme Growing for a Greener Tomorrow, is expected to increase the cumulative tally of trees planted to over 52 million across the country. Speaking at the Bono East regional version of the exercise, Regional Forestry Manager Desist expressed the relevance of the tree planting exercise to the region, which currently serves as the transition zone between the savanna and the forest zones.
This region, we should take it, the Green Ghana Day celebration, more serious than any other region, because this is more or less the middle between the northern part and then the forest. So if you do not take this exercise seriously, and then the impact of the climate change comes, we are going to experience the impact more severely than those who are in the forested areas. Because now we all are aware that the rainfall pattern has changed. In terms of severity, when it comes to the sun, it is too much.
With the region's target of planting 110,000 seedlings, Desist says measures are already being instituted to ensure that the planted seedlings are nurtured to the extent that they don't die along the way. He urged the general public to own the project to enable the region achieve its aim.
So, before having a system that we will come to where you have planted it to do the monitoring and the verification, but I want all the people in the region, especially those in this part of the region, to own the process of this tree planting under the Green Ghana Day, because that's the only way we can together green our environment and achieve the theme that we have set for ourselves, that growing for a greener tomorrow.
The One Student, One Tree initiative is another key component of the Greening Ghana project, which aims at inculcating the culture of planting and nurturing trees in students. Regional Education Director Nana Kubiajo Bakate II says the Education Directorate will be religiously supervising the initiative to ensure that school compounds will have its trees nurtured.
In fact, the call on us today is that education should ensure that our learners, our pupils, our students, both in basic and secondary schools, they make sure every student plants a tree. All the school compounds will try and plant trees there. And I'm going to supervise, I'm going to champion. I'm very happy that this call has come at this particular time, that we are trying to make Ghana green.
Paramount Chief of the more traditional area, Nana Kwaku Dankwa III, who spoke on behalf of Nananom, advised that on the Green Ghana Day 2025, government should halt the tree planting exercise and ensure that the day is used to monitor the growth of the trees planted over the few years.
Minister, anka famfra emananatu se edua ye dua ebeya ka afie beba no yenje dua na yensa nante hunhunu se edua na ye dua no aye adwuma na enkoba se de nanaka ye no chama ka ye no yu dua nua no a afie beba ukohwa na nua no na ye basa.
Other members of the public who observed the tree planting exercise commended the government for this initiative. Nana Boateng is one of them.
This day is very important, and I think it should even come beyond the Valentine's Days and other days, because greening Ghana is greening the world. Just as we eat, just as we drink, tree planting should be an everyday life.
This year's Green Ghana Day event for the Bono East region was held at the famous Kintampo waterfall. Anas Sabit, Joy News, Kintampo.
Now, still on Ghana's forest degradation, experts have emphasized the need to identify other causes of forest degradation to effectively combat the destruction of the country's forest cover. They warn the country risks losing its entire forest cover if additional measures to address forest depletion are not explored. They've been suggesting alternative measures to mitigate the destruction of the country's forest cover. Kofi Siao has more in the following report.
According to the Ministry of Environment, the country is fast losing its forest cover. The loss has led to soil erosion, nutrient depletion, and reduced water retention capacity, among others. As a result, government has been making conscious effort to mitigate the depletion rate by introducing the Green Ghana project. The initiative is to plant millions of trees to replace lost ones. Over the years, many critics have attributed the cause to mainly illegal mining. However, experts recommend a comprehensive approach to tackling the issue. They want the focus to target other agents of forest destruction, such as urbanization, farming, construction, illegal logging, among others. Felix Adochre is the Eastern Regional EPA boss.
Our trees are going. They are day in and day out going because of these activities I've mentioned, because of mining, both legal and illegal. Because even if you have a permit, you still have to clear the vegetation to be able to do the work. So both legal and illegal farming activities these days is also taking our trees away. Others are just wantonly cutting the trees. Timber activities, construction, now urbanization is also adding to the destruction of the trees.
The Minister of Lands and Natural Resources has been touting the success of the Green Ghana initiative, claiming a 73% survival rate of trees planted. The Eastern Regional Manager of the Forestry Commission, Isaac Noble Lechance, says in spite of this achievement, it is important for stakeholders to intensify the fight against environmental degradation.
We are even experiencing the effects that the deforestation is bringing us. So we still call on people to rally behind the call to plant trees and also fight or prevent people from felling trees indiscriminately. And I believe if we do so, we will all benefit from it in future.
The Eastern region, like all other regions, also planted dozens of trees to observe the Green Ghana Day. Addressing a ceremony to precede the event, the regional minister set a champion called on stakeholders to contribute effectively to restoring the country's forest cover.
The theme for the 2024 edition of the Green Ghana Day project, and I quote, "Growing for a greener tomorrow," unquote, places enormous responsibility on us to collectively ensure that we leave future generations and communities with richer, better and more valuable forest and wildlife endowment than we inherited. It is a clarion call to renew our commitment and rededicate ourselves to ensure a sustainable future.
The region, as part of the Green Ghana Day event, planted 700,000 trees of different species. From the Eastern region, Edwin Kofisian for Joy News.
The German ambassador to Ghana, Daniel Crew, has urged Ghanaians to use audit services reports to hold duty bearers accountable. This, he says, will lead to transparent financial management and enhance the trust of the people. The ambassador said this at the commissioning of an ultra-modern regional office of the audit service at Koforidua in the Eastern region. Kofi Siam again.
The new edifice is among two other regional offices in the Central and Volta regions funded by the German government. It will strengthen the structures of the audit service and enhance the execution of its constitutional mandate. Speaking at the official inauguration, the German ambassador to Ghana, Daniel Crow, urged Ghanaians to ensure duty bearers follow the rules of transparency.
The reports that are produced by this institution, it is about what is done with these observations and recommendations that are put on paper. And this does not depend on the audit service alone, but this depends on any citizen of this country. So only if you decide to hold your members of parliament, your municipalities accountable and use these reports to make sure that they follow the rules of transparency, then the Ghana Audit Service will be very, very successful for the progress and the prosperity of the people in Ghana.
The Auditor General, Johnson Ekuamoesiedu, lauded the President for increasing the Audit Service's annual budget, which he says has enabled them to renovate some of the offices.
This reality has been due to the massive support of the government to the Audit Service in our determination to help curb the menace of corruption. Your Excellency, since assuming office as President of the Republic of Ghana, you have steadfastly increased our annual budget, and this is what has made it possible for us to renovate a number of Government of Ghana funded office projects that were abandoned in between the year 2010 and 2012.
The Eastern Regional Minister, Seth Echampon, who read a speech on behalf of President Akufo-Addo, urged public institutions to cooperate with the Audit Service and ensure compliance with audit recommendations to improve public financial management.
As we commission this facility today, I urge all public institutions and officers in the Eastern region to cooperate fully with the Audit Service. Compliance with audit recommendations is essential for improving public sector performance and achieving the desired outcomes of our development agenda. Government remains committed to supporting the Audit Service in its efforts to improve public financial management. We will continue to provide the necessary resources and support to ensure that the service can operate independently and effectively.
Meanwhile, government has secured funding for the construction of additional regional and district offices for the Audit Service across the country. From Koforidua in the Eastern region, Kofi Sian reporting for Joy News.
The Ghana Medical Association fears shortage of critical medical supplies in hospitals nationwide if the 118 containers of essential malaria, tuberculosis and HIV medications continues to stay at the Tema port. Outstanding demurrage and third-party charges totaling 7 million cedis is causing the delays in clearance. The Global Fund, which offered the drugs, has issued a final ultimatum to Ghana. The medicines, which arrived in October last year, to be cleared. General Secretary of the Ghana Medical Association, Dr. Richard Salome, warns further delays will be catastrophic for TB patients who are already feeling the pinch. Dr. Salome is urging government to quickly intervene as some hospitals are already running out of these critical drugs, with the situation expected to worsen by month's end. And that's it, but coming up next is Business Updates with Benjamin Akakbo.
Let's settle for business now. And in our first story, economist Professor Patrick Esuming has stated that although the cedi is gaining some grounds against the dollar, funds from the IMF may not sustain it in the long term since the Bank of Ghana is not allowed to intervene in the market. He spoke to Joy Business.
There's been a general expectation following communication from the IMF and also from our own local, the Ministry of Finance, that the expectation has largely been that by the end of June, we would have gone through this. So these funds will come. And also, we have to look at the quantum of the money we are receiving and, how much of a difference it will make to our reserve position. But when you put all of that aside, there's some sense within the market that even when we receive these funds, the Bank of Ghana is restricted in its ability to intervene in the market, because we have to meet some reserve requirement, some gross international reserve requirement and net international reserve requirement in the IMF program. So in some sense, that inhibits the ability of the central bank to intervene even when you receive these funds. So overall, I'm not sure that just this announcement is enough to make a substantial change in terms of how the cedi has been performing. In terms of dealing with the cedi, we need to have a longer term plan and we need to have a short term plan. At the moment, we can't go and do any Eurobond. I think there has to be some improvement in how the management of the economy is going. I think for a long time, it appears that we've been in some state of a law. There's nothing really happening in terms of how we are managing the economy. So I think if we get any sense that there's some concrete plan, something new coming our way, maybe that might be enough to jolt the, just get some reaction from the investors. But until now, I think, the only thing that we know is the longer term solutions, diversifying our exports and then cutting down our imports. That is not something we do in the short term.
Let's talk power now. And the Executive Director of the Africa Center for Energy Policy, Benjamin Boakye, has raised concerns about the security of Ghana's power sector. According to him, the politicization of the sector jeopardizes the reliable supply of affordable power over the next 5 years. He expressed these concerns at the West African Mining and Power Expo in Accra.
It cannot be affordable if we're already making losses with the way we're operating it, even at this point. The only way we can make it affordable is to eliminate the losses, drive competition, and allow the businesses to drive the cost in the sector. And our position has always been that when you have a regulator, you only have to build the capacity of the regulators. And in Ghana, we have too many regulators, in my assessment. And yet, government wants to do the business. All right? And when you are doing the business and also regulating the same business, it doesn't work. And we don't need anybody to tell us that the problems we have is because we are doing the business and regulating it, and it's not working. We better perhaps forgo one. If we think we want to do the business, just do the business and stop regulating it so that we save some money on the regulatory side. If you want to regulate it, then you allow private sector to drive it. And I keep saying that we have tagged the energy sector as a national security infrastructure just to keep the politics relevant, so that they tell you if the private sector does it, we will not have the light on. But we own the national security architecture, the infrastructure, and everything as a sovereign. We need to be able to assert our authority and allow, otherwise government will start taking over all other businesses because every business is relevant, right? And consistently we keep pumping money, and government commitment in the energy sector in excess of $1.5 billion a year, because we're doing politics with it, and we are not running it as efficient as we should.
On that power-related note, we cap off the business updates, handing over back to you, Sweetie Abochi.
And that brings us to the end of the AM News. Financial analyst Dr. Wisdom Dogbe is joining us for the news review. Stick and stay.